Welcome to another instructional video. Today's video is on how to use TinkerCad. TinkerCad is a free online CAD software package, quite useful for getting projects and designs ready for 3D printing, and very easy to use, and is a good place to start if you're a complete novice. Go to tinkercad.com, sign in, create an account sign in, and you're good to go. You will be prompted to follow some tutorials that TinkerCad have provided. They are reasonable, so if not somewhat limited, hence the need for me to create another tutorial. But there are a number there, so do follow them through when you can, and they will certainly give you an idea of what TinkerCad can and can't do. So let's get started. Create a new design. When you first open a new project in TinkerCad, you'll see the work plane. The work plane is like the tabletop, if you like, where all your models are being created. I'm using the right mouse button to change the view and to scroll around. I can use the click wheel to zoom in and zoom out. There is a grid on the work plane set to 1mm, and objects will snap to grid, which makes aligning them quite simple. On the right hand side here, there are drop down menus for all of the functionality of TinkerCad. The most common ones that you'll use will be dragging in geometry, the primitives if you like, which include some basic geometry you can see there. Letters are provided, numbers are provided, a couple of other symbols are there for you to use, and a few other extras that seem to be related to a chicken and egg kind of an arrangement that you can use also. There are some shapes that have been generated by the TinkerCad community and by TinkerCad themselves. Under the Shape Generators tab here, you can drag and drop these in as well, and use any of them. But just to begin with geometry, so you can drag in whatever shape you would like to start with. You can see the control handles on the shape. This will obviously change the size of it. Right now it's 20 by 20. Just by clicking and holding, I can resize it to whatever size I would like. If I wanted to keep it symmetrical, I'll hold the Shift key down, and that will keep it symmetrical as it resizes. I can change the thickness of an object quite simply, so down to 4mm thick there. I can raise and lower an object using this black cone shape, and place it wherever I would like. One other thing that's very useful to know is how to use the holes functionality. Any object, any primitive, any geometric shape can be turned into a hole. So for example, if I was to take this cylinder, drag it across, I'll just make it a bit smaller and a bit odd shaped, doesn't matter. Drag it into my rectangle, just reduce the size of it slightly, turn it into a hole, as it is now. Select both objects and group them. This will kind of take a bite out of my rectangle. So when I ungroup, the original cone shape, or little shape, is still there, and I can move it around and resize him. But when I 3D print, it doesn't print and just comes in as a whole. Select them both and regroup, and it'll take that bite, if you like, out of the geometric shape. There it goes. That can now be resized, moved around, spun, and had anything done to it that you would like in readiness for 3D printing, and that will 3D print quite nicely. Control Z to undo. There is an undo button at the top as well. Another tip for using TinkerCad that's very useful is using the work plane to your advantage. So right now these two objects, or this single object, is sitting on the work plane. If I hit the W button, I can then now move my work plane onto any face that I would like to draw on. So if I move the work plane onto the top of this little red rectangle, now any primitive that I drag in, so let's grab the number 2 and drag it in, will now sit on that work plane and be sitting on top of my object. So if I wanted to print the number 2 on this funny little object, I generally like to lower it inside a little bit to make it to join them up, and then again Control A to select everything and group, and that will quite happily print out. If I didn't like it, I can undo, move my number 2 across, and perhaps I'll just lower this down a little bit more, turn it into a hole, and then group again, and now the number 2 will be like a little recessed number 2 inside my object, and that's quite often looks very good when 3D printed. So there you go. That's using shapes, creating holes to take slices out of objects to change their shape, using the work plane by hitting W to your advantage. Now the work plane is at the bottom again. For drawing, using the work plane to draw on surfaces. So I can draw on the side of that if I wanted to. That funny little pyramid shape will now be permanently attached onto the side. I can meld the objects together. And then group. And then those objects now are permanently fused together. So this little object now could be downloaded for 3D printing if I wanted to. Don't particularly like the pyramid sticking out like that. So I wanted to download this little number 2 for 3D printing. Across to the design tab at the top left here. Download for 3D printing. STL file format is the most common. Down it comes. They got some great names for their files in TinkerCad. This one's called Cool Go Borrow. Jump across to my Makeware software, delete that old project. Click the Add button, search for it. There it is. It's in my Downloads folder. Open it up, move it onto the platform, and there it is in Makeware, ready for 3D printing. So there you go, there's the basics of using TinkerCAD. Combining primitives, dragging and dropping, resizing, melding 2 objects together, using holes to your advantage. Now you can ready to start designing. Design away.